joining us on the program where topics of national interest get our attention. And we will begin by bringing you up to date with news that made headlines during the week. So we are going to start with President Bola Tinubu, who will on Tuesday, that's this week, present the 2025 appropriation bill to the joint session of the National Assembly. This was disclosed by President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, during plenary on Thursday. Akpabio said the budget presentation would take place at the Chamber of House of Representatives. Also, the High Court in Abuja on Friday granted bail to the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, in the sum of 500 million naira with two sureties. Justice Emeka Nwite, the trial judge, stated that bail is granted at the court's discretion while delivering the ruling. Also, Nigerians were on Wednesday once again plunged into darkness following another collapse of the national power grid. A tweet via the official handle of the Nigeria's national grid confirmed that the grid collapsed at about 2:09 p.m. on Wednesday, making it the 12th time the grid has collapsed in 2024. And on to topics that get our attention today, the National Economic Council (NEC) has urged state government to key into programs of the Presidential Food System Coordinating Unit to address challenges mitigating against food security and their underlying causes. Also, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and the Nigerian Guild of Editors condemned the growing suppression of press freedom and freedom of expression in Nigeria. These and many more get our attention today. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you to today's episode of Firecrackers. My name is Iriba Mr. Lapo. Let's first go on a break, and when we come back, introduction of guests will be done, and then we'll get onto the topic we have today. Do stay with us. To have you back if you're just joining us, this is Firecrackers, and the topic we have at hand has to do with the NEC meeting and probability of having state police in Nigeria, since they say that it's something they will be deliberating on by 2025. And now joining us right from Lagos, we have Emmanuel Ekule. He's Executive Director in Lexa Trust Foundation. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on Firecrackers today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, all right. So, right to the topic we have at hand, what are your thoughts on the issue of state police being raised in the NEC meeting? Because it seems like all the 36 states have already given their submission, and it's something they are going to deliberate on by next year. So, what are your expectations for it?
Sorry, can you kindly repeat the question? I didn't get it.
Okay, I was asking about your thoughts on the state police. This is something that is being deliberated on NEC, and they have said that they will discuss it, that's in 2025, which is actually in few days to come. So what are your expectations for the deliberation when it comes to state policing in Nigeria?
State police is something that normally we should be practicing at this time, but because of a lot of people in political positions, or we as a country, we have not made the right steps to make us find ourselves or being ready to have that state police that normally should have been at this time in all states. So in trying to look at that, there are a lot of security issues or security challenges we have encountered in the country as a country over the years. The issue has been the lack of political will by those in power. At the same time, even the interest from even the citizens themselves to concern themselves or even be interested in issues that affect them. So state police is the right thing. It normally should have been the right thing. But because of the way our country have been and because of the lack of accountability of those in political office has made a lot of persons not supporting the state police. But as we are all tilting towards that, we'll continue to encourage that synergy between policing actors. At the same time, also look at how the police should learn to also, policing actors should also learn to work with those communities that they are policing. This has been a challenge over time, issues of trust between the police and the policing agencies and citizens. But we're hoping that it's not just sitting at the table and thinking about how money can be shared. They actually go into the field to ensure that those that are given this opportunity to head such offices are able to contribute their quota to the realization of this initiative.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that. A lot of people are worried, even including the Inspector General of Police, about the likelihood of state policing in Nigeria. But some other people have raised points of they being controlled by state governors. Do you also share that sentiment? Is this something that it is something we really have to be bothered about, or it doesn't even matter at all because security of lives and property is what should take precedence?
In a country like ours, unfortunately, if you start with the IGP currently, the IGP is being appointed by the president, even though the Police Act of 2020 specifies that they should, or the president should work with the NEC, the Executive Council, in getting an IGP. For the past how many administrations, the president on his own have appointed somebody as an IGP without even following the guidelines as it contained in the Police Act of seeing how many years such person should have and all that. And also the oversight agency of the Nigerian Police Force, which is the Police Service Commission, also don't even have powers to actually check the IGP, because the IGP is being appointed by the president and can only be replaced by the president. So that already, there's a loophole there, a gap there. If you come at the level of the states, currently the commissioners of police are answerable to the nation. That means most times they don't work with the governors. And in some situations they do, but in some situations they don't because they take their directive from the presidency and not even from the state. And if they start taking it from the state, it means they have to be steps put in place to check excesses and ensure that the governor does not use them as a pawn in their political ambition, as it's done at the level of the presidency currently. So if the governor appoints the commissioner of police, that means in checking or dismissal, it should rest with the police service commission at the state level, I hope. Because when you are going to the level of having state police, it means indirectly you also be having oversight agencies in 36 states as well, which is the Police Service Commission, being expanded to 36 states. At the same time, currently we have the internal complaint mechanism, which is the Police Complaint Response Unit in states. But still at this point, there's still no capacity building for 3/4 of those CRU in states on their roles and what they should do. And there's no also achievement currently on what they have done so far in checking their colleagues currently in office. So it's not just in making the laws, but ensure that those that are playing the oversight role are doing it. And if they fail to do it, they are also being checked or punished for failure to carry out their responsibility. And also to ensure that if the governors, if the president also go outside their mandate of ensuring security of life and property and start using the police or policing agencies for their own personal ambitions, there are sanctions in place to check them. But currently in Nigeria, we don't have. That is why the president operates like somebody that is above the law. And in extension, the IGP only does what the president wants, which is a very, very big gap that needs to be addressed as urgent as possible as we are thinking towards having a state police.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. So in Nigeria right now, it is well known that we are under-policed. And even with the fact that we are still under-policed, we've had a massive protest that was trying to call back a particular segment of the policing squad. That was the NSAS protest that we had in Nigeria. So the fact that now we will be having more police, and even in each state would be having their own police. Do you think that perhaps this might even compound the problem? Because you have just mentioned that we have a lot of things on ground that we even need to sort out first. So without sorting that out first, and then we are now having introduction of state police, do you think that that might even lead to probably more human rights violation and some of these people being extrajudicious with the tax that they're supposed to have at hand?
I would say the first one is yes, at the same time, no. In Nigeria, we have found ourselves saying, let God help, let it be the will of God, let God assist, and that. Because we have failed to perform those roles ourselves. And unfortunately, the houses of assembly have only been bodies of approving laws and not ensuring its implementation. So there can be laws in place, and even if political officers or those occupying certain offices don't follow the law, nothing is being done. They are not being brought to book. Just like I said and gave example, the past 3 administrations have chosen an IGP. The past 3 to 4 IGPs have been chosen without the consent of the police council. And if you start coming back to the level of the state, if the number 1 person in the country is not respecting the law, then what is the criteria are you using to judge the next person failing to also follow the law? So the problem of police brutality have been there over time. Yes, they are good officers, but they are still bad eggs in the service. And the Police Service Commission is there, and the CRU is there. But the question has always been, what is the limitations to their powers? There are limits in different ways. As I said, the CRU, which is the internal complaint mechanism, reports to the police PRO. A police PRO does not have any power to dismiss or do anything. He can only refer to the commissioner or refer to the IGP at that level. So there at the same time, the police service commission at this level that they are in Abuja, how many cases have they addressed? We have a lot of institutions that are not functioning. So if there are maybe reports, maybe only from Lagos, we may report about 200 cases to the police service commission. At the end of the day, you may get 5 being addressed. If you are looking at national human rights in all states, how well have they been defending the rights of citizens? A lot of persons don't even know the roles of national human rights. And even the national human rights in states, 3/4 of the national human rights offices are not functioning. I'm saying this because consistently where there are human rights abuses, you will not see the Office of National Human Rights going there or trying to ensure that the government actually ensures some form of compensation or see that the victim have access to justice. Except very few states that you have active state coordinators that are ensuring that these things work. But 3/4 of the states, they are not functional. So if you have systems that are not working and you are creating more systems, there's also that possibility that it will also not work. And at that level, you are creating a lot of loopholes, which will be very easy for criminals in office to slip through. But if you ensure that the ones we have currently, let us start the reform with the current system. Let it start working. Then we expand. But as long as we have not been able to use the current offices we have to ensure accountability and access to justice for victims of abuses, and we expand it, it's more like we're expanding the problem. So we advocated for NSAS, yes, because they turned rogue and failed to they failed to carry out the mandate on the reason why they were created in the first place. Instead of protecting citizens, they became predators going about victimizing citizens. Now, if we are trying, seeing that maybe we are trying to expand, community police relationship is something we should pay attention to.
Thank you so much for staying with us. If you're just joining us, this is Firecrackers, and we're looking at our discussions for the next meeting and probability of having state policing in Nigeria. And we have on standby Emmanuel Ekule, the Executive Director, Electoral Trust Foundation, who is joining us live from Lagos. Thank you so much for staying with us. So you were saying before we went on the commercial break about how the NSAS protest went in Nigeria.
Yeah, so I was saying that the SARS was actually created to address issues of online robbery on the highways and all that. Over time, they became tax collectors, going about carrying out duties that were not part and parcel of their mandate. This affected public trust and affected how people saw the police. So in order to go for reforms or in order to ensure reforms, it was necessary to close down that particular unit, which finally it happened because for years we're getting the 2017 that they have ended SARS until it finally happened in 2020. But the issue there is the essence why people complain about police brutality Has it ended? There are still cases of police brutality currently. There are still cases of lack of trust between citizens and the police currently. There are also still issues of lack of synergy among state policing actors working together in addressing these common issues of insecurity in states. There's still issues of weak accountability system. There's still issues of lack of political will still there. Issues we as citizens also have to play the role in trying to people we compete with a track record, rule of law, track record of accountability with political will, at least to a particular extent. People that they also appoint, we also learn to follow. But when you lack that, it goes a long way in affecting a lot of things and further crumbling the existing weak systems we have. So for me, our advice, yes, we are working towards that, it's fine. Can we make the PSC to start working? Can we start also ensuring that the people who are appointed as commissioners or as IGPs, also the right criteria as contained in the Police Act is followed? At least somebody with at least 4 years before retirement is being followed. And when it's also due for their retirement, they also retire as expected. You understand? So those things are relevant. If they are being done, even within the police themselves, they start looking at it that yes, we are respected and we are valued, and therefore we can also offer quality service. At the same time, there's issues of procurement at different levels. Some of these issues that are just at the national level and have been hidden will still come in a worse form, because at the level of states, there will also be issues of procurement of certain materials, right? Tools and equipment that they'll be using. Yes, at different times, also we have been hearing about political votes, security votes. These amounts, citizens don't know about how much is it. There's no also accountability on security votes. Why? It's more like wasted resources that cannot be accounted for. Any resource you give out must be accounted for. And if you want to take your security sector serious, then all these things they have to pay attention to: who heads, who accounts, who the funds is going to, and at the point of exiting such office, you account for every single penny given to you. If you fail to do that, you should be brought to book. Not the situation in Nigeria where it's still 200 billion and you return 400 billion and then you are freed. I don't know which country that is thinking about development is looking at that. No country will do that, or a country that is fighting insecurity and freeing Boko Haram persons left, right, and center. Such a system already gives more room for new persons. Now we have a new another terrorist group in the house, Lakurawa, also causing issues in other places and even collecting tax from citizens. It's showing the failure of the government. And as long as at the national we don't address these issues at the national, if it goes back, we're only expanding the problem. So we need to pay attention to all this.
Okay, all right. So when it comes to accountability and keeping police in check, I think recently, thanks to social media, people always post infractions by some police officers, and then they investigate and then they punish them. But we also have information reaching Nigerians that they should stop posting such on social media, but instead they should go through the right channel of complaining. Perhaps this is said so that people outside the country would not have a bad image of our police. But what are your thoughts on that when it comes to punishing police officers who have erred in one way or other when it comes to following rules and regulations? They've been posted online, and then the police force actually taking responsibility for their discipline.
The first question you ask ourselves is, when there were no phones, how were people reporting abuses? I remember those times when I was growing up, police were paid very meager amounts of money but I can remember vividly seeing a police truck pursue armed robbers and killed one directly opposite where I live. This was around 5 a.m. They started following the armed robbers around 1 a.m. to the point that they killed about 3 around my area. They started following them from different locations in the town where I was staying till they finally killed one and then also shot 2 others. That was when people came out to praise them for the work they did because they were delivering on their work. So it's a similar thing that currently can also be done. In trying to address issues of insecurity generally, the people have to learn to work with the police. At the same time, the police also have to learn to work with the people. In doing this, some of these issues can be able to work. But as I said, the police on their own too will have to show that they are also on their own have to also show that they are supportive of the work the police is doing. Somebody once said that we don't have, if the families are perfect, it means police is also perfect because they are they are from the society, and it's something that we should pay attention to. And if that is done, I believe to an extent we'll be able to, be able to work well and also be able to carry out this work of oversight better.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that. If we look at Nigeria now, the places that seems to be really getting hit when it comes to insecurity is the northern part of Nigeria. If you have to look more into north central, like Benue State, where we are always seeing issues of Edis attack up and down. We know that there are local vigilantes there, but still it does not seem to be enough. Do you think that state policing could actually bring down the whole issue of farmer header crisis to the barest minimum, or even eradicate it completely?
I will say, let me put it this way. Initially, there were issues of farmer header clashes. Initially, but currently what you see is a completely different agenda. And I try always to differ a little when people keep saying it's farmer header clashes. That is never the issue now. There are different agendas that have been promoted using armed thugs or criminals to pursue these ambitions in different places, like in Benue, like in Jos. Because these persons, for me, I feel because they are not answerable to the North. So because of that, people come in arms. They don't come with cattle. So you cannot say they are coming, these are headers. If people come with heads or come with cattle and the rest, you know that yes, they are headers. But when you come into a state with only arms and you kill people that are farming and you take over their land, it's a different agenda. It's not a situation where headers are coming to get a place to stay, but it's a situation where people are coming to actually overtake, try to intimidate a particular tribe and try to be like guide them or make decisions or make them accept what they want. Those have been issues. If a lot of persons normally feel that from Middle Belt up north, it's just 2 tribes, particularly maybe Hausa, maybe Fulani, but there are more than 100 tribes. Almost every state have more than 4 tribes that has been their state from the onset. So, but most times, if you still see also that in those very locations that we're having insecurities, most times, if you check, there are certain people trying to push certain thugs or certain criminals to go and affect a certain area that are not accepting them to do what they want in that particular area. There's a lot of scripts in the country, and we should not look just at the scripts being sold to us over time. Sometimes from the news, yes, but sometimes if you go critically in analyzing the situation, you see that the farmer header clashes they are saying is really not what is happening on ground. And for governors that really want to do the right thing, if I remember in one state or the other where the governors will call on the attention of the Commissioner of Police to carry out intervention in some areas, and you don't see them doing anything about it. In short, I'll be specific about Benue State. For example, I was privileged to work in IDP camp, a refugee camp in Benue. And many locations, these persons will come and camp where these persons were living. They will come and kill them, and when they run, they occupy their houses, eat their food, and stay in their land. Benue State have 72 battalion. That is one of the foremost barracks of the military being formed to actually police and ensure compliance and work and all that. If you think about the military in Nigeria and think about the work it has done, then it's one of the famous places. But if you check their interventions around addressing issues of this influx of headsmen, so-called headsmen, coming to kill citizens in Benue State, you see it as a different script. They may go there and just say, stop. You don't see them arresting anybody. You don't also see anybody being arrested and brought to book. That means there's something that they themselves are protecting. So the military has to be checked for their contributions in these crimes. Somebody was killed in Benue, Agwaza, that a lot of persons called Ghana, was killed in Benue State, and the interview he had on channels, he came out clearly to say how law enforcement officers are involved in these criminal activities. Nobody is being brought to book. As long as those persons are not being uprooted and punished for their involvement, we'll continue talking about this, and more groups will continue coming up. In other countries, Boko Haram persons would have been sentenced to life imprisonment. But in Nigeria, we feed them and free them back. They go back and form a new name and come back and terrorize people. And we think we are moving forward. We are only wasting resources of trillions allocated to the military each year if we continue going this way.
Okay, all right. So now, holistically looking at it, it seems like state policing would definitely have lots of benefit when it comes to managing security issues we have in Nigeria that could even also translate to economic prosperity for us, since we might be battling with food insecurity. But overall, what are the challenges you think we might run into when it comes to state policing, and what solutions or what advice would you give to the federal government if they let this go through in 2025 when they're deliberating on it?
So the challenges we may get into first is the system has not been purged. We already have old law enforcement officers that are used to doing policing in a kind of way, archaic way of doing things. The system have to be purged, and those type of persons their capacity have to be built, and certain persons that have been found wanting over time should be punished or replaced or sacked or dismissed, to at least keep those that we feel can be able to work for the good of the country. That is one. Secondly, the accountability systems we have, the right persons have to occupy those offices. And when you start looking at the level of appointment, a lot of persons appoint people based on tribe. You also appoint people not based on competence or based on experience in a particular field, but based on your friendship. Nigeria is not your company. Nigeria is not a personal thing that you decide how it works. There are people with competence in particular fields. Appoint them to head there, and let their experience be brought to add value to those places, which is a departure from what we have been doing. So if the right persons are being given the opportunity to head this Police Service Commission, National Human Rights, or the internal complaint mechanisms in the states, it can be a step in the right direction. At the same time, the people we elect as governors or presidents also have a role to play in that. Then the court system is another thing altogether currently. It's a lot of people used to look at the court as the last hope of the common man. But if you view opinions, to them, a lot of persons is the lost hope of the common man. So this is another challenge, because even when your rights are being abused and you take it to the court, there's still little or no this thing to show that at the end of the day you get justice. So what's the essence, or where is the rule of law? Then we're also thinking about the right followership. people have to wake up that they have a role in policing. It's not just the work of policing agencies to go around doing this. We have a role to give them intel because we live with people. If there are criminals among communities, we have to give out such information, and that can help. But if we don't give, it will still be the same problem. And also, security agencies to know that the law supports them if they are acting in good faith. In such a situation where if their fellow colleagues give them wrong instructions to follow and they refuse to do it because the wrong instruction, they cannot be disciplined. Because something like the Police Act, the legislation like Police Act protects officers acting in good faith. And then appointment should be based on competence. And also the criteria for recruitment should be clearly spelled out. Also, another thing that we need to pay attention to is also the review of the curriculum. It has been long overdue. We need to, review the training curriculum of law enforcement officers. At the same time, ensure that once they leave office, there must be checks. And people that fail to account for every single thing they were given while in office, if they cannot account for it, they should also be punishment and should be clearly spelled in legislation. From the president to the governors to everybody, be it those also occupying or heading this accountability units as well, be it EFCC, ICPC, and all that.
All right, thank you so much for that. Now it's time for us to move on to our next topic, which is also an interesting one, that is honoring human rights in Nigeria. But before we go to that topic, let's first see this break on critical need for improved regard for human dignity. And when we come back, we still have our guests on standby and we'll continue that discussion. To stay with us.